Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 13. Small Print Runs, an interview with Jane Davis.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
Today I'm starting my first ever interview show for the Begin Self-Publishing show, and with me I've got award-winning author Jane Davis, who has written a very interesting blog post on the Alliance of Independent Authors blog about how to use short-run printers as an alternative to print on demand. So welcome to the show, Jane.
Thank you very much, Timothy. I'm very pleased to be your first guest.
We were having a brief discussion before I pressed the record on this exciting interview, and you were just saying about you felt that it's really important that self-published authors know that there are alternatives to print on demand. Can you explain why you moved away from, say, CreateSpace into doing short-run print runs?
Yes, I should probably say that I'm continuing with print on demand because obviously Amazon have an amazing pool of potential readers that I want to tap into.
Yeah.
So actually print on demand is an additional string to my bow. But I do think that indie authors were sold the line that print on demand was the only option for them, whereas it is actually one of several options. You've mentioned print on demand. Obviously, a lot of indie authors focus on ebooks only because there's a greater level of profit there. But one of my main issues certainly was that I was finding it very difficult to break even selling print-on-demand books. The point with print-on-demand is that, you know, the main selling point is you didn't have to buy hundreds of books all at once, find the storage for them, go to them later and find the corners had curled up or they were a bit damp because they'd been stored out in the garage. You didn't have to find the space for that. But the downside is, of course, that whether you ordered 10 books or whether you ordered 200 books, the price remained the same. And so it's very difficult to break into profit when you've produced a book to professional standards, you know, hired copy editors, proofreaders, and invested in professional cover design. And there really isn't very much profit at all.
Yes, I mean, this is something that's, I mean, I've only done like CreateSpace so far, but when you actually look at the profits you get from a CreateSpace paperback book, unless you charge an awful lot for it on Amazon, you won't get that much. And I'm guessing if you're trying to distribute to bookstores, then you have to give a discount, and that makes it even less profitable. Or in your case, I think you were saying you were making a loss when you were actually distributing to bookstores.
Absolutely. I mean, when I hand sell books, I hate to tell you this figure, but I calculated over a 3-year period that I was actually making a loss of about £5 per paperback book sale. And I know that sounds terrible. One of my aims is I've always loved the physical book. I don't read ebooks personally. It's not a pleasure to me. I don't think the reading experience is the same. I know lots of people love them. And I know particularly lots of my older friends have said that they read a lot more because their eyesight isn't as good as it could be, and there are definitely benefits to being able to increase the font size. But for me, it's always the physical book that's been the absolute pleasure of reading. And also, I did want to see my books on the shelves of bookstores. And of course, with my first novel, which was published by Transworld, I got that. But I did meet with some resistance when I asked bookshops to stock books that had been printed by CreateSpace, because of course many of them do see Amazon as well, not only a competitor but a company who's actually caused damage to the book selling market. Not all, but some bookshops had that attitude, certainly the larger chain shops. So really I wanted a publishing option that also came with the setup there so that I could trade with large chain bookshops like Waterstones.
So as things currently stand at the moment, You mentioned Waterstones. Is your book freely available in Waterstones, or did you have to go around from branch to branch trying to get them to order it? Or
I'm only just starting that process now, but what I can tell you from my previous experience of being published by Transworld is that there is nothing happens automatically.
Yeah.
You can have your trading form set up, your trading arrangements set up with Waterstones. Your book may be available to be ordered from gardeners, but unless you go and talk to the individual managers and say, my book is there, they may not necessarily be aware of it. With Half Truths and White Lies, my first novel, even with the award win behind me, I would go and round the local branches of Waterstones, and they would order maybe 2 copies at a time, and then you'd have to go back a few weeks later and actually say, those are sold now, are you going to reorder? And the process was by no means automatic. So even if you have the trading arrangement there, you do need to put in an awful lot of footwork.
yeah, I mean, I think in effect you are really running your own sort of mini publishing company.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the nature of self-publishing, yes.
So one of the points you make in your blog post is about the improved quality of the books you ordered from Clays as opposed to CreateSpace. I wonder, have you ever used the Ingram Spark service? Because that's an alternative to CreateSpace.
No, I haven't. I think you sort of nailed your... I can't remember what the saying is now. Is it
Colours to the mast?
Banner to the mast? Yeah, there we are. One of those, anyway. I think it's an either-or route at that stage. I read all the comparisons of the services. I'm a member of the Alliance of Independent Authors, and they constantly publish people's experience of using both services. I started off with CreateSpace really because my journey to self-publishing meant that the first ebook platform that I published with, and for me the ebooks came first, was KDP, the Kindle.
Yeah.
And so it was a natural progression to move, when I moved into paperbacks, to put that business with CreateSpace also. I think pricing came out pretty similar. Customer service came out better with Amazon. The quality of the books since I first published them with CreateSpace has improved enormously. They've had a couple of innovations. When I started, you could only get the shiny book covers, and of course the matte book covers became available. The paper is a very high quality, and I think it's a personal preference whether you like that smooth quality or not. But one of the problems with having such high quality paper is, of course, when you're looking at distribution and you're having to pay for postage or delivery yourself, they're very much heavier, I've noticed, than the book runs I've recently received. And there's a considerable difference in price in postage, which also is going to affect the bottom line on how possible it is for me to actually send these out to individuals. So I'm finding that with direct sales, I can actually offer free postage and packing to people who want a signed copy of the book without losing out, which is quite a nice thing to be able to do.
So in your mind, I think you see this as a great option for basically sending out individual, or where you're going to an event or something and you're giving out a lot of copies, or you're hopefully selling a lot of copies. Yes.
I mean, basically the quality is consistent. The colours, I think, on the covers, and my covers are very important to me, they seem to be far more vibrant on the copies I've just received, whereas they did vary slightly with CreateSpace. But when you're doing very small runs, of course, they will vary slightly from run to run. So, yeah, but a lot of the way that they look is due to the fact that I've also taken the opportunity to update the covers and to have the interiors professionally formatted. I'd done my own formatting before, and when I moved away from print on demand, or when I produced the new editions, I didn't want the interiors to look like the CreateSpace template.
Yeah.
I wanted them to look, I wanted them to look as if they'd been very professionally produced. And actually, at the same time, I've updated all of my interiors on the print-on-demand version. So whether people order online or whether they buy from me directly or whether a bookshop orders through Gardeners, they will now get the new interiors and the new covers as well. So basically, I think I'm now in a position where I'll have the best of both worlds.
Okay. With the Gardeners distribution service, is that a global distribution or is that just in the UK?
I believe it's the UK only. I can't see that it would be economical for them to be shipping books abroad with the prices that they're charging. So I would imagine UK only.
So is your main focus for the UK book retailers then?
Well, that's another very good reason for staying with print on demand, actually, because I really see the books the new editions that I've just had produced for UK bookshops and for hand selling at events, while the print on demand remains. My readership, I actually have a larger readership in the US with the ebooks. That's where the majority of my income comes from, Amazon.com, with the ebooks, and it may well be the same with the paperback sales online. So I think people want to consider keeping both, actually.
I know that if you have a CreateSpace version and a non-CreateSpace version available, then Amazon will never show out of stock if you have the CreateSpace version because they'll just print a copy. So
that is a very real benefit of print on demand, yes.
I mean, I'm guessing it would be possible for an author in the US who wanted to do small print runs to do the same thing with a US distributor as well. So,
absolutely.
Because like you, listeners to this show, I can tell you from the stats, are mainly in the US. So I don't know if that's more interest in the US about self-publishing.
I think it's a bigger country with more potential readers. We're tapping into a relatively small pool in the UK. So if you aim for UK only, you are limiting yourself, aren't you?
I think actually probably there's more stigma about self-publishing in the UK than the US. It just seems like a feeling that there's a lot more snobbery about self-publishing in the UK, but not having lived in the US, I don't know if that's true for certain, but I think the US is a bit more forward-thinking about self-publishing.
I think that I think they may be a little bit ahead of us. I really did feel that in 2014 things changed over here. I mean, there were far more dedicated events, for example, at the London Book Fair for self-published authors, and we got our own area of the London Book Fair because we were also being treated as publishers, of course. So I think the change is there, and also with the Society of Authors recommending that their members do consider self-publishing because of the terms that traditional publishing houses are offering. That each project should be considered on a case-by-case basis, that we actually have got a degree of respectability now. Yes,
I think that's true, and I think there's always been a big debate about quality and like self-publishing, but I think this is a bit of a false debate because even in the old traditional publishing world, there's always been quite a few, quite frankly, quite poor publishers around. So I'm not sure that this has been poor self-publishers around. I think hopefully most of the get-rich-quick crowd have more or less left. There did used to be a bit of a get-rich in Kindle in 10 minutes mentality around a few years ago.
Well, I think that was sold as, it's still where people were asked what they wanted to do for a living. There was this huge number of people, 60% odd, who said they wanted to be an author. And I think it's not helpful when you see the figures for the big selling authors and see that they're earning millions of pounds. I mean, the average book, it's only 5% of books that sell over 1,000 copies. And that includes traditional publishing. Of course, the statistics only come from the ISBN numbers. So given that not all ebooks have to have an ISBN number, they may not take those into account. But the idea that there is a magic formula that will result in getting rich quick, I mean, I haven't stumbled on it yet. Have you?
No. One of the sort of unique identifiers about this show is that I'm not professing to be some marketing or other genius who's earning millions of pounds from self-publishing. But I do think that self-publishing, for a whole variety of reasons, as much for people's own sort of execution of their ambition to actually have a book out there, rather than expecting to make millions of pounds out of it. And that for a lot of businesses, it's also having the ability to publish a book about their industry and that sort of thing is a great opportunity that's now available. So,
yeah, of course, there's a lot of non-fiction that is being written so people actually have, you know, they may be professional speakers, but want to actually have a book to sell to people on the day that, you know, for people who've been to an hour's lecture who want to read deeper into a subject, it's obviously a great thing to have a book available. I've got someone I know called Jim Lawless who deals with change management, and he's written a book with all his theory that he gives to people at the end of his talks, and he can either sell that to them or it's included in the ticket price. Yeah, that's a great facet to have.
In terms of going back to the the original topic, which I've wandered off from, with the short print runs, what would you say is the minimum number of books you can do in a short print run?
Well, there isn't really a minimum number, but the point is the price at which it becomes economical. So when I went to Clay's, for example, they gave me options, and really the price came down to a very good figure at 200 books. Obviously 300 books, it came down even lower. And Piers Alexander, who's the author of The Bitter Trade, he recommends not to do less than 2,000 because then the price does come down to £1 a book. But of course, you've got to have the cash flow there. And that simply wasn't an option for me, especially as I was publishing 5 paperbacks all at the same time. So I ordered 200 of each. And that halved the price of what I was paying per unit from CreateSpace.
Yeah, but obviously you've got to deal with shipping and everything yourself in that situation.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
How it works with Clay's is that they store one box of books for you, free of charge with the price, and they deliver whatever percentage of the order that you want to one UK address.
Oh, okay.
So they ship directly to gardeners from the stock that they keep, and you ship or deliver anything that you hand sell. Well, a lot of events that I'm doing at the moment are local events, fairs. I did a market stall last weekend, which was very good, just locally in my local village. I'm doing a self-publishing book fair a couple of miles down the road. Now, there's no cost to these events for me. Sometimes there'll be a cost and sometimes there'll be travel expenses, but you have to look at each. You know, I've started to look at the maths to see whether I can afford to do some of these events that are further afield now. Of course, it's not all about how much money you take on the day, especially with ebooks, because you take your promotional material with you hand it out. One of the things I'm trying to do is build a mailing list, so I'm looking to gather email addresses. And also, if people go away with one of my postcards or bookmarks, then they might buy an ebook after the event. So it's difficult to measure on the day, you know, what your break-even point is. And I think just the face-to-face contact with readers builds more loyal readers as well. They do come back for more. They maybe buy one book and they come back if you do a monthly market and get the next book a month later. So it is nice to get out there and talk to people, I have to say.
Well, personally, I found that actually talking to people face to face, it's a tremendously good way of selling books. I mean,
yes.
It's strange, but people who maybe have no real interest in the subject matter or the type of book you're writing will often just buy the book because it's written by somebody they know. It's the novelty of it as much as anything.
Absolutely. To have a book signed to you is quite nice, I think. Or perhaps they're buying gifts for friends and they can say, oh, I know this person, I've met this person. Definitely, yes. Okay.
Well, I think we're going to wrap things up there. Where can people find out more about you if they're interested?
Well, I have a website, www.jane-davis.co.uk. And actually, if anyone signs up to my newsletter on the website, they can download a free ebook of my novel, I Stop Time. And I don't bombard people with emails. I only send an email out when I have something genuinely newsworthy, like a book release. So there's no risk there, and it's something for nothing, if you like. And I have a blog on that website where I interview other authors. And also each book has its own page and people can download sample chapters and see the reviews, see what other people have to say about them.
Okay, well, thanks very much for the chat, Jane. And I'll put more information about you in the show notes to this episode on the beginselfpublishing.com website, because I know a lot of people have trouble actually remembering website addresses from podcasts. Yes. So they'll be able to click through to the show notes from the whatever podcast app they're using. And thank you very much, Jane, for your time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.